Chapter 26. Daji plots revenge. Bigan had the skins tanned and a robe made. Soon winter came. One day, dark clouds covered the sky and a strong north wind rose up. A heavy snow fell over Jiaoge like silvery pearls or fluffy willow catkins. Pedestrians waved their sleeves to fend off the snowflakes. Nobles sat around a stove or before a fireplace enjoying delicious food. King Zhou and Daji were drinking happily when an attendant came to report. Bigan requests to see you. When Bigan had offered his respects, King Zhou asked him, "It's snowing so heavily. Why don't you stay indoors, uncle? What's so urgent that you must see me in this weather? The Happy Terrace is so high that it touches the clouds and must be cold in the winter. I'm worried about your health and have come to present you this fur robe as a small token of my loyalty. You're getting on in years and should keep it for yourself. That you should present it to me is real proof of your loyalty and affection." King Zhou said appreciatively. Bigan then went downstairs, collected the tray on which the robe was placed and reascended the terrace holding it high above his head. He then helped the king on with the scarlet satin fox fur-lined robe. "Though I'm the king and own everything in the country, I have never had such an excellent fur robe for the winter. Uncle, you cannot have done me a greater service." King Zhou praised him with a smile and asked Bigan to sit down to wine. Peeping out from behind a curtain, Daji realized that all the fur was stripped from her relatives. She felt as if her heart was being pierced by a sword, but could pour out her grief to no one. She hated Bigan bitterly. "You old bastard! What business is it of yours that I entertained my family? You're deliberately insulting me by displaying the fur before my very eyes. If I don't gouge your heart out, I won't remain queen of this palace." She swore, tears pouring like rain. After a few drinks, Bigan thanked the king and then left the palace. King Zhou entered, still wearing his new robe. Daji came out to meet him. "The Happy Terrace is so cold in winter, and I'm delighted to have this fur robe," the king said with satisfaction. "I see things differently," said Daji. "I do hope that you'll consider my foolish opinion. Your Majesty's the dragon incarnate. How can you wear a robe of fur stripped from so mean an animal as the fox? This is not suitable and beneath your dignity." "You're right, Queen," King Zhou said. He immediately took off the robe and sent it to the royal treasure house. Daji had said this because she could not bear to see the king wearing the skins of her relatives. "In order to avenge my sister, I proposed the building of the Happy Terrace. How could I have foreseen that it would lead to the slaughter of all my relatives?" Daji thought, burning with hatred. She made up her mind to destroy Bigan, but could not think of a way to achieve her aim. One day, Daji was drinking with King Zhou on the Happy Terrace when an idea sprang into her mind. With her magical power of transformation, she greatly reduced her beauty. She had been as beautiful as newly opened peonies or begonia flowers radiant in the morning sun, but now she retained only a fraction of her original beauty. The king noticed it. He stared in wonder at her for a long time without uttering a word. "Why do you stare at me in silence, Your Majesty?" Daji asked. "Because I find you as lovely as flowers. I long to hold you in my arms and never let you go." King Zhou said insincerely. "I'm not as pretty as you say," protested Daji. "As you love me very much, I appear beautiful in your eyes. But I've a sworn sister, Hu Shimei, a nun in the Purple Sky Nunnery. She's at least 100 times more beautiful than I." King Zhou could never resist women and wine. He was delighted to hear Daji's description and asked with a smile, "Would you let me have the chance of meeting her, my love? She's a virgin maid. She's studied the way since her childhood with a nun in the Purple Sky Nunnery. It won't be easy to get her to come here. By your grace, you have to let me meet her once. I won't be ungrateful for your service, my dear," King Zhou begged. "When I was at Jizhou, Hu Shimei and I lived in the same chamber and learned needlework together. When she left home to become a nun, I wept. But she comforted me and said, if I ever learn the art of writing on the 5 elements, I'll send some incense to you. Should you wish to see me, just burn the incense and I'll come to you at once. She kept her promise and sent me the incense a year later. Yet I've never tried it, as soon after I was granted the divine favor of serving you in the palace. If you hadn't suggested meeting her, I would never have dared to mention the matter. Daji told him. Why don't you get the incense and burn it straightway? King Zhou urged. It's still early. Hu Shimei's a celestial, not an ordinary woman of this vulgar world. Let me do it tomorrow. I'll wash my body clean and set tea and fruit on a table in the moonlight. Then I'll burn the incense. You're right. We cannot blaspheme her. King Zhou agreed. Late that night, King Zhou slept soundly. Daji took the opportunity to resume her true form and went directly to the grave mound of Emperor Shongyun. She was met by the pheasant specter. Sister, don't you know that the royal feast you offered resulted in the slaughter of all your family? Some of them even had their skins stripped off. Daji wept too. I shall avenge them, sister. I've thought of a way to deal with the old bastard. I won't be satisfied until I have the heart taken from his breast. Let's help each other. All you have to do is... You must be lonely here all by yourself. Why not take this chance to enjoy the pleasures of the palace? We can be together night and day. What could be better? You're doing me a great favor. How could I refuse? I'll be there right on time tomorrow evening. The pheasant specter said gratefully. Having arranged everything, Daji made her way back to the palace and returned to King Zhou's side without disturbing him. The king got up at daybreak, excited at the thought of meeting Hu Shimei that night. He waited impatiently all day, and when the moon finally rose, he wrote a poem to express his delight. Over the east sea shines the moon. The universe clear and transparent, like a jade discharging in the sky. It radiates rainbows of hope and joy. On the happy terrace, King Zhou urged Daji to burn the incense at once. Daji assented, but advised him, "You'd better conceal yourself, for Hu Shimei's a celestial. I'm afraid she might be offended by the presence of a mortal man. She might leave at once and never come here again. I'll have to tell her about you first." "As you like, my dear love." King Zhou wholly agreed. Daji then began to complete her trap. She washed her hands and burned the incense. At about the first watch, the wind began to whistle, dark clouds covered the moon, and a murky fog filled the air. In an instant, the sky became dim, and a bitter chill penetrated every comer of the palace. "What a dreadful wind! It's creating havoc!" King Zhou cried in alarm. "It's Hu Shimei riding here on the cloud and wind," Daji explained. Just then, they heard the sweet tinkling of jade pendants and a thud as if someone was dropping from the air. Daji hurriedly urged King Zhou to conceal himself in the inner chamber. "Here comes Hu Shimei. Let me talk with her first." King Zhou had no choice but to hide in an inner room, but he peeped out through the curtains. The wind soon dropped, and under the brilliant moon, he saw a Taoist nun, dressed in a pink robe, a silk belt, and a pair of hemp shoes. As the saying goes, a woman looks much more beautiful under the soft moon than in the strong sunshine. The king found her extraordinarily charming, her skin white as snow, her face like a begonia at dawn, her small cherry mouth and peach cheeks alluring, her bearing graceful and her manner sweet. Daji moved forward and greeted her. "Sister, you've come." "Elder sister, how are you?" Hu Shimei replied. Daji led her into an inner chamber. They exchanged courtesies and then sat down. As they sipped tea, Daji said, "I burned the incense, and you've kept your promise. I appreciate it very much. I came as soon as I smelt the incense. I apologize for intruding." Hu Shimei answered courteously. Comparing the two, King Zhou saw that Hu Ximei was a divine beauty and Daji a mere pretty mortal. He felt his heart quicken and his blood race. If I could sleep with Hu Ximei, I wouldn't even regret losing my throne. He said to himself. Do you eat vegetables or meat, sister? Daji asked. I prefer vegetables. Daji ordered a vegetarian banquet, and the two gossiped warmly and, knowing the king was watching them, behaved alluringly. The more he watched Hu from behind the curtain, the more the king felt she was a celestial come down from the moon palace. He longed to sit beside her, talk with her, and embrace her. He pulled his ears and scratched his cheeks in frustration, unable to sit still for a second. Finally, he lost his patience and coughed meaningfully to indicate to Daji that he could not tolerate the situation any longer. Daji understood clearly what it meant. She signaled to Hu with her eyes. I've something to ask of you, sister. I don't know whether you'll agree or not. I'll do whatever you instruct me to, sister. I've mentioned you to His Majesty several times, telling him of your great virtue. His Majesty greatly admires you and would like very much to meet you. Now that you're here, would you agree to see His Majesty? He didn't dare intrude without your prior consent, and asked me to consult you first. What do you think, sister? I'm a woman. Moreover, I'm a nun. I think it's indecorous for me to meet a man, especially a stranger. Custom forbids anything to be passed by hand between a man and a woman. How could I meet and sit with him at the same table? It would surely be a violation of the rights. Hu Ximei refused resolutely. Not at all. Daji refuted. Since you're a nun, you've already transcended the vulgar world. How can you still talk of differences between men and women? Besides, the king's the son of heaven.